Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Witch's Tea, where we'll be talking today about, well, we have a series going here about fairies and nature spirits.
About the Fae in general, which encompasses a huge category, basically.
Very big.
Yeah.
So we have a few sections of this. So this is the first episode of that. And I'm Malorine of Moonlight Divination on all platforms.
And I'm Violet of Violet the Green Witch and Fox and Bear Healing on all platforms.
So this episode, we're going to bring some magic and chaos into your lives. Buckle up.
Yeah, and this is going to be my favorite because fairies are my jam.
Yes. So let's see, let's talk about this. So you want to talk about
Yeah. So anyway, fairies, what are they, right? So I think, throughout different cultures, there's different type of fairies. But fairies basically are just other beings, and they live within a parallel universe to ours. They are spirit beings, but can actually also be incarnate at their choice. There's different theories on how this happens. Some people believe it's that they're so proficient in magic that they can actually basically using glamour spells to make themselves invisible to us. Other people do believe that they're just, light spirits or light beings, so they are able to live in a fourth dimensional type of world where things are physical, but they don't necessarily need to be physical, but they can interact with the physical world. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's what I believe more. I believe that they are just a fourth dimensional type being that interacts with us. I also very much believe that a lot of us have been fairy as well, because it's just another type of incarnation, though technically they're not being embodied into a human body, but they are in a living being, that we can be as a spirit.
Yeah.
And I definitely have stories on that because I actually have quite a few past lives in fairy. And when I use the term fairy, also as in like the place, so fairy being a place and fairies being beings as well, or the fae being the beings. But the fae encompass huge group of beings of different species. You can't equate it to anything human because it doesn't work that way. Like, we're all human, but I guess you can almost equate it to like all of the animal kingdom, right? Like where there's different kinds of animals and we're part of that animal kingdom, right? So I guess that's how you can say that, because there's pixies, there's gnomes, there's elves, there's everything you could possibly imagine that a lot of people feel like are fantasy, or not fantasy. Actually, they're living beings. It's just that we can't see them, and there's a lot of theories on why that is. I definitely believe it's because we broke that relationship of a long time ago. Our ancestors broke that relationship by taking advantage of them and also hurting their habitats as well. We're going to focus mostly on nature spirits on this episode, and nature spirits really are, truly live in nature. And the more we harm nature, the fewer places they have to live, and they are existing within our world in a parallel universe, but they're still existing in this world, caring for plants and animals in this world. And some of them even care for humans, but specifically, the nature spirits are those beings who have been assigned to work with the animal kingdom, insect kingdom, plant kingdom, and taking care of them, making sure that they're nurtured and healthy, and even work at guarding them.
Yeah. For sure. All of that. And I definitely work. My connection with nature spirits, and we talked about in the last episode, I work a lot with stones and found objects. And I work a lot with the dryads, and we'll talk about these are tree spirits like live in the trees and actually working with the trees themselves. I'm also direct a lot with plants and insects. And for me, like that's like I work with it in a very like I know there are beings and I know they exist in like this other realm. And I do play around with them a lot too. And I feel like, yeah, this is also a thing with like the fae. They can be naughty. They can be a little bit mischievous.
100%.
Very much.
100%.
So I'm sure we have stories about things in your house being moved. And yeah, they like to play. They like to play a little bit. But that's not all of them. But I feel talking about nature spirits in this connection. So do you have any stories of
I definitely have a few stories. I mean, I have a lot of stories for house fairies, but I also have fairy stories about myself in incarnations. I have been a nature spirit a few times where I was tasked to take care of mostly animals. And I think that's probably why in my human incarnation this life, I'm so connected to animals, and I am an animal communicator as well. So I can, my psychic abilities, I can actually hear and feel what and get visuals from animals directly. And I think it's really having to do with the fact that I was a caretaker for the animals as a nature spirit. I was like a water sprite. So I actually took care of animals in like this pond. And there was a pond, and I took care of the frogs and the turtles. I think those two were the majority of the ones that I actually cared for the most. And there were some other animals in the ponds, but those were the two major ones that I definitely took care of. And in that lifetime, actually, I had something really terrible happen to me. And actually, I have a friend, our friend Victoria, who's also works with fairies a lot, that she and I were in that same lifetime. And we were captured by what we would call the bog witch. It was like a being who was not the nicest and was kind of cruel, and was cruel, not kind of cruel to the fae. And she would collect us and dragonflies to use our wings. So she would rip them off of us and let us die from them, from like basically oozing out whatever like essence we had. So she would use basically our essence to, for her magic. So that was one very vivid lifetime that I remember. I also remember being, I guess what somebody might call maybe more of an elemental, but I don't necessarily think that, because I was a fairy of light, I basically lived in the rays of the sun. And so I was tasked with basically bringing sunshine to create, so plants can basically create photosynthesis, so that was like my job. And I know that sounds all crazy and everything, but it is true. Like it is very much a place you can have lives. And I do believe that a lot of people have actually experienced lifetimes in fairy before becoming human. And I think a lot of us that have been always have that deep connection to the rest of fairy. And even in my meditations, I definitely will have experiences where I'm back there, or I'm in sort of like an in-between place where I get to see some of my fellow fairy, and they are so welcoming and so sweet. And they always say, they call me sister. And I have a fairy guide. Actually, one of my spirit guides is a fairy also. She's a fairy queen. And I'm trying to think like what else. Yeah. So basically when I have these meditations, they're really wonderful because I go to this special sacred grove, a sacred grove to the fairy. And we sit in front of the sacred tree. And, we like within my meditation, we do a meditation and we have like almost like a tea party, and they'll share stuff with me sometimes. They'll even give me, and I know a lot of people say like, don't take things from fairies. They expect something in return. The friendship you have with them and the respect you have with them is all that they wish from you, really. And they've given me so many things. They've given me elixirs for healing. They've given me stones for healing. I work with the fairy a lot with healing, especially, I was attuned to Reiki. I'm a Reiki master teacher. And there is a whole group of fae that are healers. And I've worked with them. They're very different than a lot of the other fae that I've encountered. They're very silent. They don't talk a lot. And they're just very methodical and very slow about the way that they heal. And the way I've seen them heal, they almost use like these gold, almost looks like gold leaf. And they'll put it on wherever you have trouble in your body, and they'll put it on so it heals you. So that's one experience I've definitely had with them. And as far as like in living nature, I've definitely had moments of where I've gotten glimpses of the fae, like where I'll see little sparkling lights where there shouldn't be. Also, when I've done meditations in like the park or somewhere where there's nature, I'll automatically connect to the animals and to the fae that are taking care of them. And as I mentioned in our last episode too, I have such a relationship with like even like the crystals that I wear, because there are fae and nature spirits that are living within these crystals, and you can build a relationship with them. And to me, like when I don't have this with me, I feel like I'm missing a part of me, because I have such a relationship with the being housed in this that I can't see myself not being with them, because they're so much a part of me. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's interesting. Like I do have a connection with the Fae. It's interesting, like our friend Victoria that we both know. I remember when Victoria first met me, and of course, you being a Black woman, I always know that the Fae exist in many different cultures, right? They show up in all sorts of. I would have to name for all of them. We'll talk more about this as we go deep into depth. But I remember I opened the door, and she opened the door. That's her house. And she saw me there, and she's just like, she told me this like a few, like maybe months after we knew each other. But she said, first time I saw you, like your wings just like emerged from the back. And she was just like, okay, she's part of the Fae as well. And it's interesting because my childhood name, my nickname is Pixie. And my sister was Pumpkin. So that was always, I mean, it could just been ours. Like I was always like tall and slim, and she was like a little bit like a little chubby, like but cute chubby, right? And so we were always Pixie and Pumpkin. Oh. And I remember just I had all these like all of my like nicknames were all like Fae related, and it was really interesting. Like people would call me these names, not knowing anything about like, and I was like, I remember because people kind of saying I was like really fairy-like, and just in the way I would operate and the way I would kind of like exist. And I remember being as a child, and these are people who are like, no, adults, like, oh, you're just like a little cute little fairy, like kiss my cheeks or something. And I was just like, okay. But yeah, I mean, I work mostly like consciously a lot with the tree energies, tree spirits. And I have a thing now, like a lot of, well, not a lot, but I to work with forms of divination that include kind of, I don't know if it's a form, but I like look at leaves, like when they're like whirling up and with the air, and I try to read and say, okay, what is actually happening? I look at I forgot what it's called. When you're looking at the birds kind of flying in the
sky. I mean, it's part of the augury, but But there's a specific thing for that. I forgot what the name is.
Yeah, I have to like, it's always different, like as hundreds of terms of divination. My biggest thing is like listening to the trees when the wind goes through them. That's I love that. And
too.
I know for sure that I've I've done that before. I've sat and sit in parks or whatever around trees in nature and listened to different trees, and I maybe get to like, oh, this is the oak talking, and this is like, what is the walnut tree? Like I feel like I can hear and feel like what they're saying, and they communicate through those movements. So for me, it's like very like I love working in the nature spirits. It's so grounding for me. And of course, being in nature is a grounding experience anyway. But I have a thing where you probably see it like I collect a lot of hagstones.
Me too. I have a ton of them in my altar.
I have so many, and it doesn't even make sense the amount that I have. And like it doesn't like I just find them all the time. So I'm constantly like, I'm always connecting to like, oh, like they want me to see things and what. So I'm always like, and obviously this is like a form of protection you're wearing on you. But so for me, it's a lot of these like stones and I collect all these little acorns and I'm always like this. I feel like I'm just like a little fairy running through the woods.
Same.
Like, collecting things.
That's the same thing. And I think a lot of people who are like very connected to the Fae have that, right? Like where you're constantly collecting like twigs. I have like so many twigs and branches and leaves and stones in my house. Yeah, but the hagstone is interesting too, because the hagstone, right, is supposed to be that you can see into the fairy realm through it, right? Yes. Yeah. And it also reveals truth. You know, like the true identity of people. Like if you look through it, you're supposed to be able to like, if somebody's wearing a facade, like you're supposed to be able to see it. But yeah, that's kind of like the idea behind a hagstone too, is that the hole through it allows you to see the things that other people can't not see. And it's funny that the two of us managed to find a lot of them. I find so many of them.
It's insane. I was just like, I feel like, I'm like, is this common? Like, do a lot of people find them? I'm like, I found one in Mexico coming everywhere I go. This one is from England. And I was just like walking, and in England on the beaches, they're not really beaches. I mean, it's just a collection of tons of stones and rocks near a body of water. It's not like it's not a beach. It's just there are rocks by water. So literally, it's like my ex-husband used to he used to call me a witch all the time. Like, he was just like, I don't know how you're finding all of these. Like, it'll be like millions of stones, and I'll just like focus on one, and then like I'll pick it up, and it's like the hagstone.
Yeah, right.
And exactly. He's just like, what? Like, how? Like, what's going on? I'm like, don't question it. Just let it happen.
Yeah, and like as a kid too, I'm sure you did the same thing. My mom said literally her purse, whenever we went to the park and I was little, she said it would suddenly weigh a ton, and she didn't know why. She's like, she'd open up, there would be like rocks, leaves, sticks in there that I put it in for her to bring for me home. You know,
I'm a big stick collector. What I like picking up is driftwood.
I have a ton of it too.
I have so much driftwood. My mother lives in Canarsie, in Brooklyn, and there's like access to Jamaica Bay. And I'm always walking through collecting shells and collecting pieces of wood, and they're on my altar. And I remember, it's a park. So like, obviously I went with just like my jacket, and I had all this stuff with me. And I was just like, how can I walk through this park with all the people who are thinking this woman's insane? Like, what is she like doing with all these, and they're like big pieces of wood. So I'm sure they're probably thinking like, what is this? I mean, I think people can kind of tell. I think they probably already could see from like, I feel like she's a witch. Oh, she's doing stuff. She's doing stuff. I'm like, I'm doing stuff with it. And you're right.
It's true.
You're accurate. I am doing stuff. But yeah, I'm always collecting things. It's insane.
Me too. And for me, it's like a way to bring in those little bits of nature and the nature and making. And for me, because I have an altar that where I have Diana and I have my fairy altar too. I like to bring those things in for them as well, for them to have like the things that are dear to them inside as well. I mean, like I have a lot of plants as well, because for me, being inside an apartment in New York, you know, it's hard to have that connection to nature, but I make the effort to go to the places that are the nature that we have here, or to bring in nature into my home, having the plants. So I do have nature spirits in my home as well, because there are, you know, the fairy spirits that are taking care of each one of these plants that I have in my house. Like each one has someone that I can't see taking care of them, even though I've seen a few things for sure. Yeah. And I'll talk. Well, when we get to house spirits, there'll be a lot of stories, because I have a lot of really funny fairy stories. because they're mischievous. They are, because they find things funny, you know, and things that we may not find funny, they think they're hilarious. And I think that's where people confuse, you know, a weird sense of humor for being malicious.
Yeah.
They're not being malicious. I mean, granted, if you destroy like an entire habitat outside in your yard because you want to put your shed there or something like that, you might get a little payback for that. You know, it might, and their intention is never to harm, you know, to harm a human or harm a living thing. But, you know, they get annoyed, they get angry too. Like their homes are being ravaged by somebody, you know, not knowing that they're existing there. So they'll get you back in a way, you know, and it may be something as simple as like your lawnmower no longer works, you know, or, you know, branch fell on your house and broke the part of your roof. That sucks. And that's like a big thing. But, you know, they are also protecting themselves. So that's the other aspect of that. But they do funny things, like things that they think they're funny. You know, like if you got into nature spirits, like I've definitely had this with like water spirits, where they think it's really funny to like tussle with you in the ocean. I'm like, no, you're gonna drown me. They don't get that you can drown. They can drown you. They think it's just funny, like, you know, like, look what just happened to you. You know, it's kind of like, you know, the equivalent of like your sibling tying your shoelaces or something. So like you trip and fall kind of thing, that they think it's hilarious, but you might have broken your arm from it. You know?
I agree. And like I keep forgetting, like I have so many plants around me. I'm a plant mom. Like I love all your plants, and I have so many different species. Like monsteras are my biggest one. Like they love, and I it's so funny, like by my desk I have like these monsteras I've transplanted for so many different locations. And when I'm leaving the home and I have like someone watching my plants, I like literally I'm like tell my sister, like, did you talk to them? Did you sing? Like, are you in the space? I have a couple of temperamental plants that know when I'm not there, and they get dramatic, they droop, they yellow, and I'm just like, and I come back and I'm just like, okay, did you have to act up for her? Like, did you really have to, be dramatic about it? But yeah, I love being around plants. Like I just, and I love like too, like monsteras, they tend to grow out, and I let them kind of grow wide and big. And the ones that I have on near my desk, they grow towards me. So like you probably see it, like doing videos there, but they're kind of like there in the background, and they're just like getting closer and closer to me. And I love doing it's like doing Reiki. They love Reiki, like all beings do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just found like they really they love when I do it and they're in the space with them. And we just kind of like vibe together. But yeah, for me, it's definitely a huge connection.
Yeah, I'm actually really looking forward to, like, I'm moving out of the city into upstate New York, where it's more nature. And so I'm really hoping that I can, develop my relationship with the nature spirits even more, because like it is challenging in the city to have that relationship. Not challenging to have a relationship with fairies, because fairies exist everywhere, and they exist, in your home. There are very specific fairies that live in your homes. There are, the elves that are part of fairies that, help you in daily things that you don't even know that they're there. So that's different, very different than the nature spirits. But like even here, I'll just take a walk and, really connect with the spirits of the tree and like the nature spirits that are taking care of those trees. I really try to connect with them. And especially if I'm having like one of those days where my anxiety is just soaring, I'll go out to connect with them, and their energy is so calming, even though sometimes fairy energy can be like this and like a little sparkles, but there's something about it too that is very calming about it, because it takes you to a different state of mind.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I sometimes we need that. Sometimes we need that, like, sometimes like, if I'm too bogged down and overthinking, they kind of come in and they're just like, is it really that serious? And I'm just like, you're right. It's not that serious. Like I'm making more of it than it actually is. You're right.
It's true. That's true. That's part of it, right? Like I definitely find that like when fairies come into your life or are active in your life, they want to bring in a little bit of fun and silliness too, because we definitely as humans are a lot of times tend to be so serious. And I don't mean like, you know, that we can't have fun sometimes, but some of us do get caught up in like our work or our daily lives and make it very serious and without taking time to have fun, to play games. Even as adults, you need to have that. You need to have that time. And that's definitely something I think that fairies teach us, is that it doesn't have to be all about work. You should be able to also have fun in your life, because that brings enrichment into your life,
Yeah, for sure.
So I definitely feel that. And
yeah, I agree. Like, again, we're going to talk more, I feel, about like the details of different types of spirits, but I'm trying to think, because I have a story about, I think it's a gnome or an elf. I know if we talk about it now, or should I save it? Or like,
you can talk about it. I mean, like if it's nature related.
Yeah, I feel like it was a gnome. It was definitely a gnome. So I went upstate. There was a house sitting upstate for some friends, and where they live upstate, it's kind of isolated, and they have a little farm, little garden area, and they have chickens. So pretty much it was in the morning, I have to let the chickens out, and in the evening, make sure the chickens go in and the ducks. So it was in the evening. It was late, and the chickens going very well. The ducks not so much. The ducks I have to chase, and they like to chase. They think it's funny, and I don't think it's funny. And I'm tired, and it's 8 p.m. and I just want to go and lie down, and they're just like running. I have to chase them a little bit. So chasing the ducks and kind of got them to go into their habitat. And then I look over by the chicken coop and I see, like, obviously there are predators there are coyotes and things like that. But the way that it was standing, it was almost like a small person. It wasn't like some of the coyotes, I'll see the eyes and you see, but they're lower. But this was like almost like half my size, and they were from afar, and there was someone standing and there was the eyes looking. And I was like, just gonna ignore that, right? And I was like, because I still had to walk over there. I was like, I gotta walk over there. So I'm gonna freak out because it's completely pitch black up there. It's like there are no lights or anything. So I'm walking over and I don't see the eyes anymore. And it had snowed up there. So it snowed like just, I think maybe a few hours before I got out there. So it was fresh snow. And I normally like feed the chickens. So everything was fresh. So I was just there a few hours before. So I knew what was out there. So I walk over just to make sure the chicken thing is latched, and I latch it on, and then I find a little boot, a little tiny boot, and I'm not free. I have images. I can show you some image of this. I took a photo. So it's a little boot, probably like, I don't know, like an inch or 2 inches, and it was a name, so it was kind of like an UGG boot or something like that, but it was like maybe like for a small dog or something, but they don't have a dog. They haven't had anybody, because I was there for 2 weeks. So there was nobody, and like literally the fresh snow. So it was on top of the snow. So I looked around, and it was literally where that thing was for the eyes. So I was like, okay. So I took the boot because I was like, I have to take a photo of this. This is insane. I took it with me inside, and I did a little video and I took a photo of it, and I thought, you know what?
You need to put it back.
I was like, yeah, I put it back. So I was like, if it's a gnome or an elf, I don't want to piss them off.
Yeah, exactly.
So I put it back, and what I did, it was lucky because I had picked some chestnuts the day before. So I went in a bowl and I cut some apple slices and I put just chestnuts in, and I can't remember what else I put in. Maybe it was apple slices, chestnuts, and maybe like some peaches or something. And I put them all in the same bowl, and I put them as an offering next to the boot. And I was like, and I just said, sorry. I'm sorry. Like, please take the offering. Obviously coming back the next morning, some food was taken, but of course there's predators there. So of course you would never know what really, but the boot was still there. But my friends came back, I think a week later, and I left the boot. And I was like, did you see anything? Did you see I know the boot was there. And they were like, no, we didn't see anything. So I was like, yeah, they took it.
They took it. Whoever was to, they took it.
Like, it was just crazy. This little boot was there. And I was just like,
that's crazy.
That's 2 hours ago.
That's so crazy. That is crazy. I've not had something like that happen to me. where I saw somebody in my home, but like I said, I'm going to say that for the house spirits episode. Yeah. But that's crazy.
Yeah. And I was like, I was put it back. I was like, I just wanted to make sure that it was not me freaking, like not hallucinating this thing. But they didn't do anything. I mean, it was interesting because like it's an isolated part of the forest so I did at night. I felt like I did hear something like walking around, but there are deer and all sorts of things. But it was closer to the window, the room that I was staying in. So I just feel like maybe it was walking around.
Yeah.
It's probably like this heifer took my boot, and it's like it's snowing. Like, why would you take my boot? So I feel like I was like, I put it back.
How'd you get your boot? That's what I want to know. Did you get? Did maybe they like got so scared or something that they jumped out of their boots?
That's cute. That's actually kind of cute. But
that's all I can think of. How would you lose your boot?
I mean, they didn't seem scared of me because it's like they were just staring at me with the ducks, and it's almost like it felt a little bit like it was funny. It was hilarious. It was almost like a Benny Hill sketch. Benny Hill sketch.
Yeah. Which no one's gonna know what that is.
Yeah. Okay. So okay, kind of like or I don't know. It was like very physical comedy. So I did fall a couple because it's like literally me chasing these ducks around their enclosure, and it's snow on the ground. So I slipped a couple of times, and even the ducks. It was so funny because the ducks would stop and be concerned, and then when I get up, they're like, "Oh, here she goes," and it's like, and I feel like this thing was watching the whole time, so I knew it was like,
probably like laughing.
It was probably dying, and maybe the boot. Maybe they went to move as I came closer, and they were like,
maybe he told the ducks to do that too, because he thought it would be funny.
It might. Oh my gosh, it might be. And actually, yeah.
I was gonna say, but it was really smart of you to put out an offering just in case.
I made sure and I immediately, like I brought it in, but I was like, why am I was like, I recorded it just so I can have for posterity, because I know people wouldn't believe me. And I'll show you the video if I can find it on my phone. But I was like, put it back immediately. I was like, I just got the apples and everything else. And I had chestnuts, thankfully. And it was just, and it's interesting because one of the ducks, again, a lot of predators in the area, but one of the ducks actually got taken. And they have a pond there, or like a lake. And that's where we found the feathers. Is a white duck. So I was like looking for the feathers, and they have a large property, like 10 acres or something. So I was like, I can't do 10 acres, but I was sitting by the base where the lake was, and underneath the rock, I saw the feathers, and I was like, this is where it took it to eat it. So one of the ducks did get taken, but
oh, that's sad.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so like if you ever feel like you might have pissed off or in some way insulted Faerie, quickly go get an offering and put it out. Like good things to eat, yummy things to eat, basically. I mean, like it used to be the old the old folklores always tell you to put a bowl of milk, because back in the day a bowl of milk was something that was super precious, because not everybody had a cow to get the milk from, whatever. So if you just like put out some nice stuff for them, like they'll appreciate that. I've definitely done that. I'll do that though. I've done it. It's part of my practice too, to just go out into nature and always bring like a little canister of like birdseed that has like also a dried fruit in it too. And I will leave it like at the bases of trees for the different nature spirits and also for the animals that they're caring for. And that's a really wonderful way to work with nature spirits too, is to let them know that you really respect them and care for them by leaving a little offering, and always being mindful though that offering is really safe for the animals in the area to eat as well. That's like another important thing, because I've seen people put out offerings, to gods and goddesses or maybe some other being, and then forget that like there are other beings living here that might find treats tasty and it might be really bad for them, so it's something you definitely have to be mindful of. But it's a really wonderful way, I think, to connect with nature spirits, to have that offering. And again, if you piss them off or somehow disrespected them, you definitely want to make up by giving an offering, and that'll smooth things over. Sure. Especially if you like maybe like, got rid of a bush or a tree in your yard and they're not keen on that at all. Like I refuse to ever cut down a tree. Like I'm looking for a house right now. And I've already said to my partner, like if it involves cutting a tree, I don't want anything to do with it because I don't want fairy wrath on me. No, no, no. I work with them. I don't want to piss anybody off.
For sure. And it's talking about trees, like my the house that I grew up in, my grandparents' house, which is a flatbush, it's like kind of like a quieter street. And we had a lot of trees on that block. And I remember growing up with this beautiful oak tree right in the front of the house. And a beautiful, kind of like a mid height one in the front of the house, and there was a huge one across the street. And I love those trees so much. I used to always like tie ribbons around it and like play around. So pretty much I guess I like went away. I can't remember. Maybe I was in college or something, and I came back and the tree was gone. And I was like, "What happened?" And they said, "Well, the roots were," and it was like I guess it's an older house, so it was going into the sewer system, and it was affecting. So I was like, "Just we need to cut the tree down,"
right?
And that was the answer, to cut the tree down. So even now, it just feels so weird. I feel like that tree was like connected to our home.
Absolutely.
And it's not there anymore. The tree spirits that were, I used to like talk to them and like, because like it was like a the house was 3 floors, and I was at the top, and I was like and the birds would come, and I used to feed the birds and talk to, like kind of talk to them and talk to the tree spirits when it wasn't there. And even like now, I'm at the house now, and it just feels very weird. The house just feels like a lot is just so much missing, and there's a couple of things that changed in that neighborhood, but that tree, cutting the tree down, like I don't think my grandparents really understood like how important that tree was.
Because the energy of that tree definitely, is going to be impacting your family, like your family's life too, because I mean, the tree's energy, not only is it grounding, but it's also could be protective. It also can keep calm and peace in your home. Like there's just so many aspects to a tree energy, and they're just so full of wisdom too, that they can really share that with us. They've been living here way longer than us. I actually found out recently, I didn't realize that the ginkgo has been here for like over 300 million years.
Wow. I didn't know that.
I think it's 300 million. Yeah, it was like 300 million years. It was like 290 something million years. It's literally the oldest tree on earth. So imagine the knowledge that tree and all its ancestors have gained, and that they can share with us. And that tree has like, and I think also the thing is like, we don't think about too that this tree itself has its own spirit, but then the tree has other spirits that either reside within them, like the dryads. And those also, they are homes to other beings, living beings, right? And which also are souls themselves, right? So when we interact with nature spirits, we have to keep all that in mind, because there's a lot of components involved in one thing, like in one plant or one tree, that the nature spirits is not the only thing that's there, but it's the soul or the spirit of the actual being. And they work in like a symbiotic relationship as well. And then they relate to us in a different way too. And then that's another form of symbiosis too, in the way that they interact with us, and our energies interact with each other, right?
I was just thinking about the ginkgo, like that's probably why it's used for memory.
Yes.
Because it's so long. So yeah, I just like noted that. But also another way, and a really great way to take care of nature spirits is to, I always carry like a bag with me to pick up garbage.
Yes,
and 100%. That's the best way. It's a way to just kind of keep your neighborhood clean. But also they love that. I love, like I do that a lot at the beach when I go to, especially in Canarsie. And it just amazes me that a lot of these park systems, they don't, which again, I know probably in regards to manpower.
They don't have. And during the pandemic, they actually lost tons of people. They had to cut down.
The cut because they lost money. But it was like there are like one garbage can for like the whole park. And I mean, I get it, but like it's so easy. I mean, it's such an easy formula. Whatever you bring in, take out. It's like don't leave your crap everywhere.
Yeah.
So I just feel like, that's just another way that I honor them. It's just by wherever I go, I just pick up whatever crap, because there's always crap there.
Yeah.
And I just just pick it up, and I just say, this is You all, it's for us too, but
but it's a beautiful way to build a relationship with the nature spirits, like letting them know that you care about their habitat, which is your habitat too, because we're as much part of that system than anything else around. We're animals. We are animals. We keep forgetting we're animals, but we're animals and we're part of it. And we have to live in, like harmony with the rest of, nature. And the nature spirits 100% like will work with you and know that you are an ally that can be worked with by your actions, by your, caring for nature, picking up garbage, leaving something special behind to feed the animals, being more sustainable in your own practices at home, like, trying to reduce your waste, you try to reduce your consumption, all those things, even though we think like, well, what do they care? They're out there, whatever, but they do. They are very much in touch with all those energies, and they understand that certain people are willing to go the extra mile to respect the nature and our connection to nature and to foster that versus, people who are just going sort of like mindlessly throughout their day, dumping garbage out, using, tons of plastic things or whatever. They will have a much harder time finding that connection because they're already telling them, I really don't care.
Yeah. And they pick up on all of this. I mean, it's similar to animals. Like animals pick up the energy of like, do you want to be around me? And they'll avoid you if not, and they'll be closer to you if they feel like you want to be close to them. So,
exactly.
So yeah, I feel like we've really talked a lot about nature spirits, and it's been a lot of fun. We obviously have a lot of connection to these beings. And we wanted to talk about, of course, timing wise, talk a bit about Beltane. And how do you work with
so Beltane, it's a festival or a sacred day, that really started in with the Irish, and the Celts, and it's a time for a few things, for fertility rites, and also for purification and protection rites, specifically around crops and animals like cattle. And at the time too, during these times, people in those cultures were really working very closely with the Faerie and didn't really want to piss them off and wanted them to, bring them bounty instead and help them instead of turning like their milk sour, which is one of the beliefs around that, right? So on Beltane, it's considered that the veil between the Faerie and the humans plane or the earth plane is thin, so you're able to work with the Fae much more. And it was also believed that like you should put out, which I do, put out some food and drink for the Fae that day, because it's also a day of celebration for them as well. So it marks the first day of summer. So it's a big day of celebration for that and for growth and just a fruitfulness for everyone. And it was a day to also just establish that relationship with the Fae throughout the year, to make sure that they understood that you were going to respect them.
Yeah. I mean, we talk about the day too. It's April 30th or May 1st.
Yeah.
So just so you know, that's when Beltane is. And that's in the Northern Hemisphere. In the Southern Hemisphere, we celebrate Samhain in the Southern Hemisphere. So it's an interesting dynamic as well. I love the idea that I always like to feel like when we're talking about the hemispheres that we're living in these parallel universes, and we're existing at the same time. But so it's a fire ritual. It's a fire ceremony, fire time as well. So of course the welcoming of summer, bonfires are normally that's where May Day comes from. So people walk clockwise around the pole with the ribbons. That's like when you see, I don't know what that movie is. It's like a horror movie.
Yeah, it's called Midsummer.
Midsummer, yeah, Midsummer. Yeah, so that's of course that's another
and time. It's about the sun,
Yeah, but it's it's timing people, and it's Yeah, so I always like imagine the May Day pole of like people walking around clockwise, and that what it did is also it was bring good luck and protection,
right,
and fertility as well. So
people
what was it? Yeah, the girls would kind of like show off their buxom selves and the things, and the men would the or whatever would kind of look and see, okay, like, oh, she's dancing well. Oh, she's like a rhythm, the red ribbon, red ribbon. Yeah, let's check her out, that kind of thing. So I love the idea of that. It just feels very fun and fancy free.
And it was also part of like basically a marriage. So basically people like in that moment would just like pick somebody to go have some fun with. And they're like, hey, we're married.
Oh, that's how it works. That's how it works. No, like,
no fanfare.
Nothing fancy about that. So I feel like let's talk about like how to work with. So you have an altar, maybe you have a seasonal altar. Are there any things in particular that you would put on a Beltane altar?
Well, for me, Beltane usually like my Beltane. I also work with a lot of love spells during that time. It is my thing, like I work a lot with Aphrodite, so that's my thing. And it's actually how I met my my partner. I did a love spell on Beltane, and 99 days exactly later, we met. It was our first date. So for me, Beltane is really a wonderful time to pay homage to goddesses of love and fertility. So I usually will put out like beautiful flowers, like ones associated with summer, like roses, and I will also put out fruits and stuff that we normally gather around that time. On the altar as well. So it's definitely a celebration of summer beginning, and I love summer, and I always love midsummer, but I love that May 1st really is the first day of summer. And that's sort of the celebration that I focus on. And like I said, I also what I do is I usually will put out a little cup of either oat milk, since I'm vegan, with like some cookies or something that would also be safe for like the the critters outside to eat.
That's nice. I like that. I mean, technically too, like it was the wasn't it like the bonding of the relationship between the green man and the goddess as well?
And the lady of the wood.
Yeah, it's like, they would get it on, and then it would kind of prompt everybody else to kind of get it on. So I like to work with the green man as well. Green man always gives me this very like, it's a very like lusty, like, wasn't it like he had like this like massive member? I always remember that, reading about that. It's like I always just be like like Cernunos and all those beings. I used to always be like really intimidated working with them, because I'm like, I don't want you bringing all your sexuality over here. Like, it's like a bit too much. I mean, they're like raw, it's like raw sexuality. But this is that time. So you might see Sonuno. So you might see more images of the green man or the goddess coming, maybe that, always imagine her as the empress with the belly. But if those images might come to you, maybe maybe I could put the images of that in your altar as well.
Right. Like, as far as like Celtic goddesses too, like Cara Dwyn, you want to work with her maybe during that time too, since she's a goddess of the hearth, and she's also, she's depicted with the cauldron. The cauldron, represents the fertility. So especially if you're someone who wants to have children or something like that, it's a good time to do those type of rituals, fertility rituals, or spell work, that sort of thing. That would be actually a perfect time to do that. So love spells, fertility spells, protection spells as well are great during this time, or purification, because you're beginning something new, which is the summer. So you want to shed like what's been going on in the spring maybe, and then like start anew. So you might want to do a purification for yourself, and then reset your protection even. Like, so those are things you could do during Beltane.
And working with abundance as well.
Absolutely.
Because you're setting the tone for like, you want more of something.
Exactly.
So I know we're talking a lot about manifestation, but this is probably like, for me, I would do it more around the summertime, springtime. To me, these are the times you work on your, like, what do you want to connect to?
Right.
And if you think about the seasons too, it makes sense. Like, you're not going to work on abundance when things are dying, right? You're not going to do abundance spells during Samhain or Yule. That doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah.
So for me, another ritual that I've seen too is working with runes, which of course has a Scandinavian connection, and parts of Western Europe, but that link to runes, which is another form of divination. Some people, runes can be on stones, or they can be on there's actually Liz, I don't know if you remember Liz, like Liz. she uses a burdock root, dried burdock root, that you can actually start to harvest around this time. And she would cut them and dry them off, and then actually score the runes into these burdock roots. And that, I mean, of course, they're not, you can't use them forever, but it's just kind of a nice addition to add to your altar.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So that's our first episode on the Fae. There'll definitely be, we have 3 more episodes on the Fae coming up.
Yes.
Which we're really excited about. I'm really excited to talk about all the Fae experiences I've had inside my home, because I've had quite a few. So that's going to be exciting. And now we actually are changing up our timing. So we're going to be bi-weekly. So just if you want to tune in, we'll be definitely back in 2 weeks after this episode.
Yes. And it's good too, because it gives us time to really put all into what we're writing about. And you can have time to contact us if you like. It'll be great as well to hit up our website, and our Instagram, and maybe we can have a thing, you can leave questions or something.
Yeah, if you guys have any questions about the Fae, or how we work with the Fae or anything like that, or please drop us, either like a question in Instagram, or you can fill out. We have I'm like blanking on our website. You can also send us a question as well. So if you have anything that you want to ask us about this episode or one of the other episodes you've listened to, please do. We're happy to. And also, if you're interested in hearing about something that, that's witch related, and we haven't covered it yet. Obviously, we're new, so we haven't covered a lot of things. But if there's something special that you want to hear about, we'd be open to hear about it.
Yeah, as well. Let's not also forget that we also Violet's also hosting a class coming up on mediumship, and we also hold sessions, one-to-one sessions.
Yeah.
So do you want to talk a little bit about your session?
Sure. So right now, actually, I'm going to be hosting, I have 3 classes coming up, one on mediumship, one on sustainable spellcasting, and the other one on working with goddesses, because I think a lot of people don't, they may practice magic, but may not know how to do devotional work or do spell work with goddesses. So that is one of the classes that I'm definitely going to work on. And as far as my one-to-ones, I do a lot of psychic work that involves past lives readings. I also will do soulmate readings, and just like your average psychic reading of figuring out what, if you have something coming up and you need to make a decision, I will totally help you, giving you the, the outcomes of both of those decisions and that sort of thing. So yeah, that's pretty much what I do. And I also have a little shop too, if you need some apothecary items for rituals and that sort of thing. Please visit.
Yes, her shop is great.
Thank you.
It's definitely, handcrafted with love and aesthetic beauty. It's all the Taurus energy of that Taurus rising energy. The Venus energy is very, very much there.
And sustainably made.
Sustainably made, exactly. In my sessions, if you would like to work with me, I also hold Akashic Records readings, which includes kind of a bit of mediumship. It's psychic readings as well. If you want insight on topics and past lives, and we also do a bit of that. I do astrology readings as well as numerology and tarot and all the other forms of divination. So check us out, reach out to us. Thank you so much for joining us.
And if you like this podcast, please remember to rate us and review on whatever streaming service you are listening on, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, so more people can enjoy it.
Yes, we appreciate you very much listening to us rant about all these topics that we love talking about. This is The Witch's Tea with Malorine from Moonlight Divination.
And Violet from Violet the Green Witch and Fox and Bear Healing.
So remember, you are magic.
And life is weird.
Thank you.